Welcome to EnglishPass Podcast, brought to you from our local studio in Toronto. I'm your host, Sophia, and today we're diving into an exciting topic, IELTS Test Preparation. Whether you're a beginner or intermediate learner, in this podcast, we're helping you level up your English listening and reading skills. And before we get started, let me tell you that the sponsor of this episode is TypeFit, keyboard typing practice and learning service. Now, let's talk about the weather in Toronto on Friday, January 30, 2026. It's currently minus 15 degrees Celsius, which is about 5 degrees Fahrenheit with overcast conditions. It is so cold and grey this Friday that even the thermometer is shivering while it waits for the weekend. Today, we're exploring something really interesting: IELTS Test Preparation. This is a fantastic subject for English learners because it covers a lot of practical vocabulary and real-world situations. So let's dive right in. The International English Language Testing System, more commonly known by its acronym IELTS, is a standardized test designed to measure the English language proficiency of people who want to study or work where English is used as a language of communication. When we talk about proficiency, we are referring to how well a person can use a language in real-world situations, rather than just knowing grammar rules from a book. This exam is unique because it is recognized by over 11,000 organizations worldwide, including universities, employers, and immigration authorities in countries like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the USA. It was first established in 1989 and is managed by three main organisations: the British Council, IDP, IELTS Australia, and Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Over the decades, it has grown from a niche academic test into a global requirement taken by millions of people every year. There are two main versions of the test that you should understand. The first is the academic version, which is intended for those applying for higher education or professional registration in an English-speaking environment. This version includes topics that are more complex and formal. The second is the general training version, which is used for migration to Australia, Canada, and the UK, or for those planning to undertake secondary education or work experience in an English-speaking country. The general training test focuses on basic survival skills in broad social and workplace contexts, while the listening and speaking sections are the same for both versions. The reading and writing sections differ significantly in their content and focus. Let us look at a real-world example to see how this works in practice. Imagine a student named Sarah who lives in Berlin. Sarah wants to pursue a master's degree in architecture at a university in London. Because she is applying for a higher education program, she must take the IELTS academic test. She needs to prove she can understand complex lectures and write formal reports. On the other hand, consider Ahmed, an experienced electrician from Cairo who wants to move his family to Ontario, Canada, through the Express Entry program. Ahmed would take the IELTS general training test because his goal is immigration and proving he can communicate effectively in a daily work environment and social setting. Both Sarah and Ahmed are taking the same overall exam system, but their paths are tailored to their specific goals. The IELTS exam is divided into four main parts: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. These are called modules. The total test time is about 2 hours and 45 minutes. The listening, reading, and writing tests are always taken on the same day, one after the other, with no breaks between them. However, the speaking test can be taken up to 7 days before or after the other modules, depending on the test center. The listening section lasts for 40 minutes and consists of 4 recorded monologues and conversations. One interesting fact about this section is that the recordings are played only once. This means you must develop the skill of active listening, which is the ability to listen and write at the same time without losing focus. You will hear a variety of accents, including British, Australian, New Zealand, American, and Canadian. This reflects the international nature of the test. A common vocabulary word you will encounter here is distractor. A distractor is a piece of information that sounds like the correct answer but is actually incorrect. For example, a speaker might say, "I would like to book the room for Tuesday." "Oh wait, I forgot I have a meeting, let us make it Wednesday instead." If you write Tuesday, you have fallen for the distractor. The reading section takes 60 minutes and requires you to answer 40 questions based on 3 long texts. In the academic version, these texts might be taken from books, journals, or newspapers and are written for a non-specialist audience. In the general training version, the texts are usually shorter and related to daily life, such as advertisements or company handbooks. To succeed here, you must master 2 key techniques: skimming and scanning. Skimming means reading a text quickly to get the general idea, while scanning involves looking for specific information like dates, names, or numbers. For example, if you are looking for the year a famous explorer was born, you would scan the text for 4-digit numbers starting with 18 or 19, rather than reading every single word. The writing section is often considered the most challenging part of the test. It also lasts 60 minutes and consists of 2 tasks. Task 1 in the academic version requires you to describe a graph, table, or chart in at least 150 words. In the general training version, Task 1 is a letter. Task 2 is the same for both. An essay of at least 250 words in response to a point of view, argument, or problem. Here you are graded on cohesion, which refers to how well your ideas are linked together using transition words like however, furthermore, or consequently. For instance, if Elena is writing an essay about the environment, she must use cohesive devices to ensure her arguments flow logically from one paragraph to the next, so the examiner can follow her thoughts easily. The speaking module is a face-to-face interview with a certified examiner that lasts between 11 and 14 minutes. It is divided into 3 parts. Part 1 is an introduction and general questions about your life. Part 2 is the long turn, where you are given a card with a topic and must speak for 2 minutes. Part 3 is a 2-way discussion about more abstract ideas related to the topic in Part 2. During this test, the examiner looks for fluency. Fluency is the ability to speak smoothly and naturally without too many pauses or hesitations. It is not about speaking fast, it is about the flow of your speech. Consider the case of Kenji, a doctor from Japan who needs a high band score to practice medicine in Australia. Kenji is very good at grammar, but during his speaking test, he pauses for 10 seconds after every sentence to think about the perfect word. Even though his grammar is perfect, his fluency score might be low because he cannot maintain a natural conversation. This highlights a common misconception. Many people think you need to use very difficult or rare words to get a high score. In reality, it is much better to use common words correctly and naturally than to use complex words in a way that sounds strange or forced. Another real-world example involves Fatima, an accountant in Dubai who wants to improve her career prospects by working for a multinational corporation. She realizes that her company requires a band score of 7.5. The IELTS uses a band scale from 0 to 9 to communicate test results. A score of 9 means you are an expert user who has fully functional command of the language. A score of 7 is a good user who has generally effective command despite some inaccuracies. Fatima needs to understand that she does not need to be perfect. She just needs to be consistent across all 4 modules to reach her target average. When preparing for the IELTS, you must also be aware of the concept of paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is the act of expressing the same meaning using different words. This is a vital skill for both the reading and writing sections. For example, if a question asks about the benefits of exercise, the text might not use the word benefits. It might say positive effects or advantages. If you only look for the word benefits, you might miss the answer. Successful candidates like Jose, a chef from Mexico City, spend time building their vocabulary so they can recognize these synonyms and express ideas in multiple ways. Culturally, the IELTS is interesting because it does not favor one English-speaking culture over another. While many learners are worried that they must speak with a British or American accent, the truth is that your accent does not matter as long as your pronunciation is clear. The test is designed to be fair to everyone, regardless of their nationality or background. This is why the topics are generally neutral and avoid controversial issues. Let us look at a few more examples of how IELTS impacts people's lives. Imagine Sophie, a high school student in France who wants to participate in an exchange program in New Zealand. Her school requires an IELTS score to ensure she can follow the curriculum. By preparing for the test, Sophie not only learns how to pass an exam, but also gains the confidence to survive in a classroom where everyone speaks English. Or think about Luka, a software developer from Croatia who wants to work for a tech giant in Seattle. Even though he is great at coding, he needs the IELTS to prove to the government that he can integrate into the local community. These examples show that the test is a bridge that connects people to international opportunities. One common mistake students make is focusing only on their strengths. If you are a great speaker but a poor writer, you might find that your low writing score drags down your overall average. Balance is key. You should practice under timed conditions to get used to the pressure. Many students find that they can write a great essay in 2 hours, but they struggle to do it in 40 minutes during the actual exam. Time management is a skill just as important as vocabulary or grammar. In conclusion, preparing for the IELTS is a journey of improving your communication skills. It is about learning to listen for details, reading for meaning, writing with logic, and speaking with confidence. Whether you are like Sarah, Ahmed, Kenji, or Fatima, the goal is the same: to demonstrate that you can function effectively in an English-speaking world. By understanding the format, practicing the right techniques, and avoiding common traps like distractors or lack of fluency, you can achieve the band score you need for your future. The test is not just a hurdle to jump over. It is a way to prove to yourself and the world that you are ready for a global stage. And that's all for today's episode of EnglishPass Podcast. I hope you found this helpful. Remember to practice what you've learned, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we improve. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and join us next time. Let me remind you that the sponsor of the episode is TypeFit, and I suggest to check the link at the description. I'm Sophia, and I'm excited to be your host for many more fascinating episodes to come. Until then, keep learning.